Tell me, where are you right now?
I'm in college at Texas A&M. I'm in my dorm room.
I do understand, though, a few days ago that was not the case. You just got there, right? Tell me a little bit about that.
I was in the hospital, but it's towards the end of the semester. And last semester, I was in the hospital, and it made it very difficult for me to finish up my classes at the end. And so this semester, I was determined to get out so that I could finish up my finals and wrap up everything nicely. So I got out of the hospital earlier than probably should have, but we found a way with home health care to get me up here so I can stay in my dorm and do all my medical treatment from my dorm for now, but be able to go to school.
And what year are you in?
I'm a freshman.
So Rebecca, tell me, what is your wish?
My wish is to be able to eventually cure pancreatitis, but for now, just to be able to provide support to those who have it.
Tell me a little bit about your journey. How old were you when you found out you had it?
I was 7 years old when I was first diagnosed with pancreatitis, and at first, it was weeks of a hospital stay, an entire summer, in multiple different hospitals, just trying to find a place that had any sort of knowledge base about pediatric pancreatitis. Finally, we found it here in San Antonio, thankfully, and it was the next few years until I had my transplant, the next 5 years of in and out of the hospital for different surgeries. I really hope one day that they'll be able to fix that for other children so that other children don't have to go to place, because we'll hear from our patients who will go from sometimes multiple different states before they can find a hospital that will take them. So our estimate right now is about 100,000 children in the United States are diagnosed annually, which is a pretty big number. It's not a boutique disease of a couple hundred people in the world who have this. It's quite a big number of kids who don't have a home of where to go and where they can receive help.
So then why is it so difficult to find a place to go?
Because the problem is that it starts in the education of these new doctors and nurses. They're taught wrong about pancreatitis, that it can occur in children, or about certain symptoms or the causes of it, such as believing it can only be induced by alcohol or drugs or things like that. And that's not the case. One of the primary cases for it is genetics, and that obviously a lot of children contract this disease yearly. But the problem is when you have those doctors who are taught that in their medical schools, they don't know to look for it in children, or they don't believe that when a child has it, that it's from something outside of their control. And it makes it hard to have to retrain doctors in new hospitals to let them know that this is something that can affect children. And, it's hard to retrain a doctor years after they've been a doctor.
How did you find out about it? What were your symptoms?
I had actually had stomach pain for a while before that, months to potentially years of it starting. But there was one night on Memorial Day weekend that just very, very intense pain and nausea. And we went to the ER, and the first symptoms are just pain and nausea, you don't really get much outside of the box for that. And then eventually, as the pancreatitis becomes more chronic, you start to develop other side effects that come with having a disease like that for so long, such as osteoporosis from not eating for long periods of time, or having trouble being able to eat when your pancreas is well, due to other issues with other GI organs. And eventually, those symptoms start to pile up over the years, the longer that you have it, until it hits pretty much every system in the book.
So had you had it for a while when you discovered?
I don't believe so. I believe I probably had pre-symptoms to it for a while before that, but I don't believe I had a full pancreatitis attack for longer until we figured it out.
Do you remember what the doctors told you at the time when they finally diagnosed you, and what your prognosis would be?
Oh, goodness. I don't remember much of this. I was 7 years old at the time, but I do remember that they said that they couldn't help me at the hospital, so they just kept me there for about 6 weeks, just doing pain management and not eating, and that was all they could do. I mean, they didn't have any treatment plans for it, and eventually just told me they couldn't take me anymore and they didn't know what to do. So they moved me up to a hospital in Houston, where I spent the next couple of months until Houston did research and realized that there was a doctor in San Antonio who could help me at a different hospital. So it was just a lot of back and forth trying to find somebody who knew something about pediatric pancreatitis.
I was saying this must have been terrifying for you as a mom.
Absolutely. I had only heard the term pancreatitis when I was associating it with like older men. I thought, oh, it's an old man's disease, which was a complete fallacy, and the irony of that looking at what we do today. But I just remember the nurse coming back and forth, and Rebecca being curled up in pain, and us assuming she had appendicitis, and all of that came back negative. And when the doctor came out and said she has pancreatitis, I just remember thinking, can a kid get this? And she said, well, yes, children can have this disease, but it's rare, and the extent of attacks can take up to 3 weeks. And I remember thinking, we could be here for 3 weeks. And now looking back at us living in a hospital for over 1,500 days with this disease, and knowing the extent could be months and months and months to years with a single attack, much less 3 weeks, we realized very quickly that little was known in the field of this disease, but that we weren't alone in this disease. So there were hundreds of thousands of children that were afflicted with it. But in the history of medical times, nobody really touched the pancreas, because there was an old adage of never touch the pancreas, it'll make it worse. And so it's only been in the last couple of decades that we've really thrown medical management into the pancreas. And of course, that started at the adult level. And so what is known for the pancreas is very little. And we hope to change that by starting at grassroots levels, going in and changing the medical school books, changing training. We started the first pediatric trained endoscopic program that Rebecca's Wish paired with University Hospital and Children's Hospital of San Antonio. We're training these doctors, and we're planting them across the U.S. because it doesn't help to have a child from Wisconsin have to fly down to San Antonio. We want those kids to get help in their own area. And so we trained the first, and he's in LA, another in New Orleans. We have one in Salt Lake City. And every year we keep training more doctors to plant across the U.S. to help.
So how has this changed y'all's lives? What is it like to live with pancreatitis as a child and even in adulthood now that she's older?
So for the children living, it's extremely painful. The first thing that the doctor had said to me when we checked Rebecca in was, on a scale, a pain scale, the highest known pain that we know in the medical institution is pancreatitis and pancreatic cancer. And so what these children have to deal with in pain alone is something that not many of us can wrap our minds around. And they live that in a childhood where they're trying to be a kid, and they're trying to go to school, and they're trying to play outside, and they're trying to eat regular foods. And all of that is impeded by their disease based upon what's happening at the specific moment. Are they in a flare-up? Are they not? So it's a very different childhood for these children. And that's why we pour in specifically to the pediatrics, because we know that they really need support in their life. A lot of these kids turn to suicide and make suicide attempts because they don't feel like they have hope. And we want to be able to provide at Rebecca's Wish, not only financial care and medical care, but emotional support, and let them feel very loved. And that's why we do what we do. It's why we have the events like the zoo, because we want these children to get together for the first time and be able to meet each other and have a connection, and have parents have a connection with other parents. And we want the whole community of San Antonio to say, hey, we see you and we're here to support you.
Yeah. Rebecca, for you, are you in a lot of pain a lot of the times? I mean, what was it like growing up with that?
I don't remember what it's like to be without pain anymore, because the last time I was out of pain was before I had my first attack of pancreatitis. But I learned to live with it. I have my everyday pain, and then I have my pain that's happens when something's wrong, and my pain that's recovery pain, when I know they fixed the problem, but it just takes a while to heal afterwards. And so I know to distinguish it, and I know how to treat it and to handle it, but it does make life difficult. Like last semester, starting off at college, I knew something was really wrong, and the pain was so bad, even without my pancreas, but being post-transplant, the pain was so bad that I couldn't walk anymore. So I had to use a wheelchair to get to all of my classes, and the effort of getting to class would be so painful that my 1 hour class a day, that would 1 to 2 hours, I'd be done for the entire rest of the day. I'd have to come back and take the appropriate medications, try to get my schoolwork done while laying in bed. And it makes life very difficult. But at the same time, to me, it's more of just, it's something I've had to deal with every single day. It's my normal.
So when you see another child who has it, which I assume throughout the years, you've probably met a community of people that have it as well, right?
Yes, ma'am, definitely.
You feel their pain. You know what's happening. Yes,
ma'am. That's honestly one of the most difficult things for me to do, is to see another child when they're post-surgery. To have to see, to go visit them. I want to be in the room with them. I want to be comforting them and sitting next to them and able to hold their hand. And I don't want to tell them lies like it's all going to be okay, or everything's fine right now, but I just want to be able to sit with them. And that's very difficult for me to do, to have to, have all the flashbacks of my own pain from those specific procedures that are just ingrained in my mind, and all of the pain and symptoms that come with it. And I still do it, but I still sit with them, but it makes it very difficult on myself. And it hurts my heart to think that other people have to go through that. It's one thing if you're going through something yourself and you can tell yourself that you just need to get through it for the next few hours or days or even weeks, and then it'll pass. But it's another thing to have to watch somebody else go through the exact same thing that you remember feeling yourself.
And what is it that triggered it for you? What triggers pediatric pancreatitis?
I actually have a neurological disease that was just diagnosed last year. After being sick since I was 7 years old, it was only diagnosed last year. And it attacks mainly the GI system and the autonomic system, and so your heart and lungs and things like that. And so it makes sense because I had a lot of random side diseases growing up that we thought were I just happened to get the luck of the draw and get a whole bunch of random small diseases, or big ones like pancreatitis. And now it all makes sense that it originated from that disease that just keeps attacking organs.
So how many years have you been living with this now?
This disease has been my entire life. But my pancreas, since I was first diagnosed from pancreatitis, that would be, I think almost 12 years now. And since transplant, it'll be a little over 7 years.
So you're 19 now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. They just found out about this neurological disorder despite you being in the hospital system for the last 12 years?
I'm actually the first child ever to be diagnosed with it. And I know personally a few other children who I'm sure have it too. But because I was the first child to be diagnosed with it, no one thought to look at this disease as a potential for a child. And so the second I turned 18, it was actually the day after my 18th birthday that we had an appointment with an adult doctor. And he said he thought he knew something that was going on, sent us to a neurologist in Cincinnati. And sure enough, Cleveland. Sure enough, within the very first appointment, I was diagnosed, but it took an adult doctor to look at it and realize the potential, whereas a pediatric doctor doesn't even think about an adult disease showing up. That really was a strictly only adult disease at the time. A
neurological autoimmune disorder?
Yes, ma'am. It's called autoimmune. Yes, ma'am. But again, I'm fairly certain there are other children out there who have it. I just think they didn't realize that children could get it until me.
Is all the treatment that you're doing here in San Antonio, or do you have to travel to other places around the country right now?
I'm actually very grateful. One of my treatments that I do, I was given the choice between doing a chemo treatment, a super powerful chemo treatment in a hospital that would be 2 weeks in a hospital a year that would help, calm down my immune system. But it would mean that I couldn't go to school, and that was not an option for me. So I opted to do the harder and much more frequent treatment that's every single week, and then has added 1 week hospital stays every 2 to 3 months for longer treatments. The longer treatments I do in San Antonio. Thankfully, I have specialists all over the country, but all of the treatments I'm able to do in San Antonio. Unfortunately, there is no cure for pancreatitis right now, so the only thing they can do is just sort of buy time until you need the transplant that they have. And the transplant they have, it's an exchange of problems, as we call it. It's not really a solution, and we help children try to avoid this at all costs because it does leave them with so many, you can't go and remove 5 organs from a child and expect them to be perfectly fine afterwards. It leaves them as type 3 diabetics, where they'll have a few years where they have islet cells in their liver that can help them out. But after that, they're trying to live their lives completely without the support of a pancreas and trying to manage that 24/7. You can't turn that off. You can't take a break from that.
So it affects other body organs?
The transplant does. So the transplant has to remove 5 organs because the pancreas happens to share major blood vessels with the other 4 organs. So despite the fact that you have 4 other perfectly healthy organs beside the pancreas, you have to remove all of them no matter what. It's not like an appendectomy or something like that where you can just remove the 1 organ and be done. So that's the problem with the transplant right now, is that you're leaving children who, that's 5 full organs that they need to help them out that are now gone.
And in your case, hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second.
No, of course.
I'm asking a lot of questions because, this is new to me, and I think it's new. Most people, unless you've been through it, you're not really understanding of all the details, right, that go along with it. And so I was asking, in your case, did you get the transplant?
I did get the transplant. So I will never regret having the transplant done because it saved my life. I had 2 weeks left to live, and because my pancreas just finally gave up on me after 5 years of pancreatitis, it had had enough. But again, while I won't regret it, I do realize all of the problems that come with it that I have to deal with every day because of that. And
how old were you when you got the transplant?
I was 12 years old when I received the transplant.
And after you got it, how did life change for you? I mean, it sounds like you're still in pain and you're still dealing with everything else.
I've actually had to have 2.5 more organs removed after the transplant. So it's honestly, the amount of time in a hospital has not really changed much before or after the transplant. It saved my life though. So again, I'm happy for it, but I can't notice much of a change. And if anything, I had my longest hospital stay of days in a hospital consecutively after the transplant.
Which organs did you have removed?
The transplant removed pancreas, gallbladder, spleen, duodenum, and the bile ducts. And then after the transplant, I had removed my colon, my appendix, and half of my ileum. Probably over an estimate of over 1,500 days in the hospital since I was 7 years old. Checked into a hospital, not doing any of the home health care stuff. That would be another probably 1,000 days in its own.
Well, Rebecca, you are a fighter. That's for sure. That's a lot. That's a lot for anyone to take on, yet alone a little girl, a child. And Kristen, tell me a little bit, what's your title now with Rebecca's Wish? Are you running the program?
I am. I'm president of the program. It started, before we even had the official program of us just going into the hospitals, seeing these kids in trouble, knowing they weren't getting the help either, and just saying there's got to be a better way. And so we just kind of...
How old was Rebecca at the time?
So Rebecca was 7 when the disease started. By 8, we started meeting our first other pancreas patients and pancreas family, what we like to call it. by 9 to 10, we started getting story after story because I would write her journey online, which ended up, going out to people around the world. So then we had people contacting us from different corners of the United States and pockets of the world that said, hey, my kid's in this situation too. And once we realized there was such a great need, then all of a sudden these stories came out of the woodworks, and we weren't the only ones who were dealing with these problems that needed to be addressed. And that's really how we recognized the need. Then when Make-A-Wish approached Rebecca and said, what would you like? And she said, I'd love a medical philanthropist to start a charity for these children. And this disease that we're helping with is specific to pancreas. Rebecca's, of course, got an anomaly of a whole full body issue, but Rebecca's Wish is specific, of course, to pancreatitis, which affects tens and tens of thousands of kids each year. And one of the things that has been beautiful from it is when Rebecca knows, we can't save her pancreas, but the hope is because of what she went through, we will be able to save other children's pancreas and save other children's lives and be able to literally change the face of pediatric pancreatitis. And we're already making such strides. One of the beautiful things I'm excited about, we'll raise money for the zoo, is Camp Hope, which will be the first camp. You can imagine getting these fragile children together in a camp setting would be impossible without a specific camp that has doctors and nurse teams and abilities to be able to take care of feed through the heart or feeding tubes that are going in the stomach. And we're able to do that for the first time in the history of this disease and gather these children together from 18 different states that will be able to combine and have a camp. And we're very excited about what seems to be taken for granted for normal children and population is monumental and life-changing for these children. Yes.
Okay, so tell me about the zoo event. When people head out there, what to expect?
Oh my God. It's going to be so much fun. So, of course, Tim Morrow, who's the CEO of the zoo, is a dear friend of ours. He affectionately calls Rebecca his hero. He's a beautiful person, and he's just given us the zoo. We'll shut it down for the event. And there's going to be food trucks and yogurt trucks and food tables filled with, fajitas and barbecue. There are going to be Jaguar stilt walkers. We're going to be able to feed the giraffes, and you get to see the hippos feeding. And not only do you get the magic of the zoo, which San Antonio Zoo's magic in itself, but then you get the added benefits of, all of these fun things and kettle corn and bands that will be playing and dancing, and the pancreas children themselves will get together for a pre-party, we're going to call it, and to get to have T-shirts and fun items, but most importantly, get to meet each other from multiple states that they'll be coming from. And then to know, again, when they're looking out and thinking all of those people have come to this event to help love on them and support them is the most beautiful part of the whole fundraiser. So we are inviting all of San Antonio. Everybody's invited, and it's a great family event. But another reason that I really love this event is because I'm realizing that our younger generation, and by younger generation, I don't just mean elementary school, but our teenagers are not getting exposed a lot of times to philanthropic organizations or charities. And we have all of our volunteers are teenagers from around the city, and they go in and pitch in, and they're some of my most fun participants of the event. And then they get to see they can make a difference. We raised over $500,000 at the first event, and to date have been able to raise over $2 million for these children, and are able to, because of the generosity of our donors, be able to make so many transformative changes.
And when does actual Camp Hope begin after that?
So Camp Hope will be the summer camp for our children. We did a virtual camp during COVID because that was what we could do. Virtual camps aren't exactly the same, but we could do it. And then this summer in July, we will do our first in-person camp for these children.
And Rebecca, what are you studying at Texas A&M?
I'm studying biomedical engineering. I want to be a nanomedical researcher so I can cure pancreatitis.
Wow. That is amazing. That is really amazing. Tell me one more time, if you had to make one wish, what would it be?
To be able to cure pancreatitis, to stop the pain that these children are having to go through.